The house needs painting, the grass needs mowing. Where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.
Hello and welcome to Hank Parker Off the Water. I got my lovely co-host, my granddaughter, Sarah Beth.
Hello.
How's Sarah Beth today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fantastic. If I was doing any better, I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
I hear that. Well, I got some questions for you today.
All right. So today we asked you guys to send us in some questions. And so today is the day we're going to be on the hot seat and trying to answer those questions.
There you go. All right. First question. When are the Paw Paw Baits going to be available?
I think I've opened up a can of worms. I didn't realize how long it was going to take. I probably shouldn't have said anything about Paw Paw until they were close at hand. I keep getting inundated with all these questions on, man, I thought I'd have them last week. I thought you'd tell me about them. But so far, we're on schedule, as far as I know, to have them the latter part of March. So we're about a month out. We're going to hopefully have Paw Paws ready to go.
There you go. All right. Second question is actually for me. Somebody sent in and said, Sarah Beth, what's the biggest fish you've ever caught? Now,
wait a minute. Hold on. I'm going to ask this question. Hey, Sarah Beth, what is the biggest fish you've ever caught?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. Probably a 2-pound bass and a goldfish cracker out of a box.
A goldfish cracker out of a box.
That's about it. I'm being completely honest. I'm telling you. I said last time I can catch you every twig and tree branch out of a pond.
Well,
but the fish.
I saw the fish you caught, and I'm going to say maybe 1 pound.
1 pound?
Yeah, where are you coming with a 2 pound?
All right, I thought you said there's a 50% embellishing.
Well, that's the deal.
There you go.
I like that. You know, that's the way you answer questions. My kids know I'm a Christian, so Christians do not lie. But they know I'm a fisherman, and fishermen lie. So they allow me to embellish up to 50% without it being a lie.
There you go.
So you went from a 1 pound bass to a 2 pound. Okay, you're within the parameter.
There we go. You let it slide?
We're going to let it slide. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Next question. All right. You grew up fishing with a partner. Who's someone you'd choose to fish with today, even after your generation, so of all time?
Oh, man, it would be Brian Thrift. Brian Thrift is a machine. I love him to death. I like his style of fishing. He's so talented, and if I could get one guy to say, okay, now my career's over, I'm going to get to choose my partner, it would be Brian Thrift. He's a North Carolina boy, and doesn't live far from me. I had the privilege to fish with him on TV, and I beat him because I edited. The only way I could beat Brian Thrift, he's a machine. So, yep, it'd definitely be Brian Thrift.
That's awesome. Next question. What type of blades would you use for creek fishing with lots of timber for your spinner blade?
Ooh, what kind of blade would I put on my spinnerbait for creek fishing with heavy timber?
Yeah, heavy timber for your spinner blade.
Heavy timber. Well, let me first of all tell you, a lot of people ask me the question about vibration. They say, you know, a single spin spinnerbait can put off more vibration than a tandem spin. I mean, you're always talking about vibration, and you're always talking about a tandem spin. Well, to fish timber, tandem spin is extremely important because if you bump a limb and your back blade quits turning, then your bait's going to turn over if it's a single spin. If you only had the one blade, the back blade, and it bumped a limb and it quit turning, then your bait rolls over and you're hung up. So a tandem spin is critically important when you're fishing timber. Now, what type of blade I would use would really depend more on the watercolor and the type of timber I'm fishing. A Colorado blade puts off more vibration than an Indiana blade. An Indiana blade puts off more vibration than a willow leaf. The three blades are different. The willow leaf is the bait that puts off the majority of the flash. It's a big elongated blade and it doesn't have a whole lot of vibration, but it has a lot of flash. The Indiana is kind of between the Colorado and the willow leaf. The Colorado puts off the most amount of vibration.
All right.
And so you compromise that with the Indiana. It puts off a good bit of vibration and a lot more flash than a Colorado blade. So it's kind of the three blades work differently for different purposes. If I'm fishing really muddy water, I want the most vibration I can get. I want the most thump I can get, so I'm going to go with that Colorado blade. If I'm fishing in timber and relatively clear water or just dingy water, then I want the Indiana blade. If I'm fishing in aquatic cover, if there's a lot of grass or moss in the trees, I'm probably going to go with a willow leaf because it doesn't seem to catch the grass as much.
Okay.
So it varies on all the conditions, and I've built a lot of spinnerbaits in my life, and I've played with all these different types of blades and all kinds of different conditions, and there's just something magical about that Colorado blade in the front and Indiana blade on the back. And I love mixing up silver or nickel and gold on the back. And people say, well, I like to do this, I like to do that. I get it. Everybody has a personal preference. But when I first built that classic spinnerbait that we sell so many of today, the combination I put together was a nickel blade in the front and a gold blade in the back. And for whatever reason, that bait has been magical. And not only for me, I've got volumes of testimonies that people have sent me on how great they think that bait is. And it was just a combination that I put together. I was fishing on the St. Johns River in Florida when I put it together, and I like gold blades in that dark acid-colored water. So I just put that combination together and found out everywhere I went it worked. So I call it Forrest Gump had magic shoes. I got a magic bait.
There you go. All right. Next question. What is the color called of your Ranger boat, and why did you use the same color for so many years?
Well, now the color I used for so many years, this boat color I've only used for 2 years. The red and gray and white with silver trim. The reason I chose that color is I went to the Bassmaster Classic and they had it on display and it knocked my socks off. I thought, golly, that's prettier than the boat I'm running. So I went with it because I liked it. I thought it was the best looking boat I've ever seen, still do today. But the boat I ran for so many years was white with red stripes. And it was all gel coat, no Metaflake. And I like that. You know, I've owned over 100 Ranger boats. That is a lot of boats.
That's a lot.
That's more Ranger boats than anybody else ever owned. Forrest and I talked about that before Forrest passed away. He said, Hank, you realize you've owned more Ranger boats than I have. I said, well, that's pretty wild, Forrest, since you make them. He said, but as far as title to you've owned more than anybody. Mm-hmm. So I guess I have, and I got tired of Metaflake. I just got tired of all the Metaflake color. And so I ran a plain white wrapper, is what I called it, a plain white wrapper. It just had 2 red stripes. I loved it. I ran that boat for like 9 years. And so now I'm on my red boat, and I like it. I think it's the prettiest boat I've ever owned, and I'm back to Metaflake.
I agree. It's a really pretty boat. Who was it? We were just at an event not too long ago, and somebody at the event, they said that their office was right next to yours up in North Carolina, and he said he hated it. Every morning he'd look out the window, and there comes Hank Parker out looking, pulling all of his boats out. Which one am I going to take today? Which Ranger? And he would just wave at you, and you were just all about those boats.
That was Bert Wilmer. He's my dentist, and my office in Denver, North Carolina was next door to him, and I used to keep 3 Rangers all the time. And I had 3 bays to my garage door, which was adjacent to his building, so he could look at all my garage doors. So I would see Bert up there working and looking out the window. So I'd open all 3 doors. Now, which boat am I going to take today? And I walk from boat to boat, and I'd watch him watching me, you know. I know I was killing him. So I did that to aggravate him. And a lot of times I wouldn't have nothing to do, you know. I'd be working, and I'd pull all those boats out in the sunshine where that sun would hit that metal flake. And just Bert would just be over there drooling, dying, wanting one of those boats. But he paid me back because he did all my dental work. So he would go light on the Novocaine and heavy with a needle, man. He'd hurt me. So he paid me back.
There you go. All right, next question is kind of in the same category. Why do you wear the same blue shirt in every show?
Oh, man. My son, Billy Parker, Catfish, has given me the worst time about my blue shirt. Well, first, I thought I was doing the right thing. Found out later I was not doing the right thing, but I thought I was. I was trying to display the element pattern of mossy oak. And Haybo was making the shirt for me, and Haybo had bought a license for mossy oak. And so I was trying to help Haybo and help Mossy Oak at the same time. Found out later that Mossy Oak didn't like me wearing the shirt because it was a Haybo shirt. So all this time I thought I was doing something good, only to discover I wasn't. So now I don't worry necessarily about what Mossy Oak thinks, and I don't really worry much about anything. I just wear whatever shirt I want to. So sometimes you think you're doing a good deed, and it turns out you're not. So that didn't work out real good, but I still love that shirt, and I love the elements. I think it's and I think it's the best looking shirt I've ever seen. So I wore it, and I wore it proudly. And I had about 7 or 8 of them, and I'll tell you, my sister's little granddaughter was down here one day, and I put the same shirt on that I wore the day before. And so she's spending the night, and we got up the next day, and she looked at my shirt, and she said, "Is that the shirt you had on yesterday?" I said, "Baby, I got 10 of these shirts." And so she said, "Oh." And then about 3 minutes later, she said, "I know you said you had 10 of those shirts, but is that the same one you had on yesterday?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah,
busted. She wouldn't let me off the hook.
That's hilarious. All right, next question. Where is your favorite place to fish? Like, if you could choose any place in the world, where would you go back to fish?
That is a great question. I have so many places I love to fish, but without a doubt, right now, and that's subject to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my favorite Bible verse, people say, I thought your favorite Bible verse was 1 John 5:12. And now you're telling me it's Romans 8:38 and 39. Well, it changes with time. And I read a new verse and I claim it. And that's kind of the way I am with lakes. I go to this lake, and boy, this is my favorite lake ever, until I go to another lake. And it becomes so I got so many favorite lakes, it's crazy. But I love big smallmouth bass, and I love clear water, and I love open water where you don't have to worry. They could be 10,000 boats on Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence Seaway, and you could fish all day long and not see another boat. I mean, it's just so massive. Thousands and thousands and thousands of surface acres of water. I like that. Man, you just go and go and go, and there's fish here, there's fish there, and the gobies. The goby is a bait fish that hasn't been there very long, maybe 10 years. And those fish have just exploded with all that bait. Zebra mussels have cleaned up the water. It's crystal clear. And those smallmouth have just grown enormous. It is not unusual to catch a 7-pound smallmouth.
Wow.
That is a giant. You know, I went 100 years and never caught a 7-pounder.
Wow.
And now I've probably caught 20. And the vast majority of the ones that I've caught out of the St. Lawrence Seaway. So if I'm going to go fishing anywhere I want to, I'm going to load up. I'm going to upper state New York. I'm going to get at the Thousand Islands, and I'm going to fish the St. Lawrence Seaway and Lake Ontario.
There you go. All right, next question. What is your funniest fishing story?
Funniest fishing story. The most embarrassing fishing story, and it's funny for everybody else. I'm the butt of the joke. But I went to fish a tournament at Lake Toho in Florida, which is the Kissimmee chain. You have Toho, Cypress, Hatchinall, and Kissimmee, or Toho, Hatchinall. Anyway, there's 4 lakes there. And I had practice, and they're catching some big fish out of Lake Toho. And I was not. I just wasn't on any fish hardly at all. So I trailered my boat to a place called Camp Lester, which is at the end of the Kissimmee River that comes out of Toho, runs through Hatchinall and Cypress, and then you go down the river and you come into Lake Kissimmee. So I trailered down to the ramp right at the mouth of Lake Kissimmee. And so I got down there way before daylight. I used to be so antsy, man. I wanted to be the first guy on the water and the last one off trying to put things together. So I got up, man, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I went down there, and so I sat and waited on daylight. I put my boat in. It was cold. It was, for a Florida morning, it was a very cold morning. It was probably 45 degrees, not a breath of wind. And so I actually left Camp Lester, the ramp that I put in the dark. And just as it was getting daylight, I started down Lake Kissimmee, and I looked, and almost in the middle of the lake, I could see steam coming off the water. Well, I'm smart enough to know that means that water is warmer than the air. So I go over there, and sure enough, it's a spring.
Oh, wow.
And I'm looking at all these big bass on the beds. I'm freaked out. Now, I hadn't caught any fish at all in practice. I've had a tough practice, and this is the last day of practice. So I look, and there's a big giant bass on the bed, and I throw my old jelly worm over there, and boom, this fish hits it, and I can't make her let go. I end up catching her, probably close to 10 pounds. I thought, God. And then I see 3 or 4 more, and then I am pumped up. Oh, my goodness, I can win this tournament. So I had some marker buoys in my boat that I had painted black. We had no GPS. I had no way to mark this, and it's literally out in the middle of the lake. Mm-hmm. So I put a black marker buoy here, a black marker buoy here, and then I put an orange marker buoy up here. And so I knew if I found this, I correlated with where it was down the lake, and I could line them up, and I could find this place the next day.
Right.
So I draw a partner, and my partner, he wasn't on anything. He said, I fished for 3 days, and I hadn't caught a fish. But whatever you want to do, I'll go with you, and just tell me what I need to bring. I said, well, from my perspective, you're not going to need anything but a couple of worms and hooks and slip sinkers. I think we're going to throw a worm all day, just to be honest. And he said, well, let me tell you. He said, my wife is a great cook, and we got a New York cheesecake, and she's made the best pecan pie you'll ever eat in your life. He said, I'm going to bring plenty of cheesecake and pecan pie. We will eat good tomorrow, and hopefully we'll catch a bag of fish. So that morning, when we take off, I go down, and I find my orange marker buoy. It took me a little while because now the wind's blowing just a little bit. And I find my first black marker buoy. Then I find my next one. Of course, there's no steam coming off the water because the wind's blowing it, and it's not as cold. Mm-hmm. So I have to find this place. And so I think now I got it lined up, but I can't see anything. I can't see any fish because the wind's blowing. Mm-hmm. And so the ripples are on the water. So my partner, who is the most laid-back guy you've ever seen in your life, he just throws a big old jelly worm out and sticks his rod. The seat's folded over and snapped down, so he sticks his rod where the seat holds his rod. He gets a thermos of coffee out, a big Stanley thermos bottle, stainless steel, pours him a cup of coffee, mm-hmm. digs in this bag and pulls out a piece of cheesecake. And he says, now, what you want, pecan pie or cheesecake? I said, I'm good. I'm frothing the water. So he pours him a cup of coffee, gets him a piece of pie out, and takes a few sips off the coffee and eats a little bit of that. I think he was probably eating cheesecake. Eats a little cheesecake, looks at his rod and kind of picks up, yep, sets the hook, hollers for the net. He catches about a 7 or 8 pound bass. I hadn't had a bite. I'm frothing the water. He just re-rigs his worm, puts his fish in a live well, throws it back out there. He finishes eating his cheesecake, drinking his coffee, picks up his rods. Yep. Sets the hook again. Make a long story short, that went on all day long. He smoked cigarettes. He drank coffee. He ate pecan pie. He ate cheesecake, and he's got a load of fish. I've got 0. I have not caught a stinking bass. He's got a limit.
Wow.
And they're all 6, 7, 8 pound bass. So I've got to go sign his scorecard now, which is humiliating. And Ray Scott's going to kill me. I'm going to walk on the stage with no fish, and here he is. It looked like he quartered an elephant and put it in the bag. I mean, it's an impressive bag of fish.
Wow.
So we have to go back through the locks to get back into Lake Toho to go to the weigh-in. So while we're in the locks, I'm zeroed. Hadn't had a bite to eat all day. Hadn't drank any water. Hadn't done anything. I've been frothing the water while he's catching all these big fish, dead sticking a worm. That was my first experience of dead sticking, and I tried. I tried just to throw it out there and not move it. Man, I'm my DNA. I'm ADDDDDDDD. I couldn't do it. I tried, but he did, and he loaded the boat, and I didn't have anything. So we got in the locks, and I said, "Well, I tell you what, I believe I'll have a piece of that pecan pie." He said, "Buddy, I ate all that pecan pie. I hate it. I'm sorry." He said, "I got carried away. That stuff was so good." And I said, "Well, I like cheesecake." He said, "Well, I ate that too."
Oh, man, I bet that made you sick.
Oh, I got nothing. And I had to go, and he won that tournament. Never caught another fish the other 2 days. I think he had like 42 pounds, 41 pounds, something the first day of that tournament. I zeroed, and I had to walk up on the stage and sign his scorecard.
Ooh, I know that made you sick. You're like, I found that spot too.
Ray Scott thought it was a funny story.
Oh,
so
man.
That's the way it was.
All right. Next question. What made you realize that bass fishing and hunting was what you're meant to be doing in life? Like,
I didn't have any options. I had 2 options. I could pick up aluminum cans on the side of the road and recycle them, or I could go fishing. And aluminum wasn't paying very much money when I was a kid, so that was my option.
wow.
I love to fish, and I don't know. I just came alive. In school, when I was a kid, I was dyslexic. So school was horrible because the harder you try when you're dyslexic, the more backwards things become. So I just hated school. And I couldn't wait to get home and go down in the woods and hunt squirrels or slip off and go to the pond. And my buddies in the neighborhood, all my little neighbors and cousins, we'd all go to the pond, and they'd fish about 10 minutes, and then they'd go swimming. But I'd fish all day long. I could stay, even from the time I was a kid, man, I could sit there and stare at a bobber for 12 hours. I mean, I loved it. And I hadn't got over that yet.
Wow.
I still get giddy when I get to go fishing. Well, I get to go fishing tomorrow. So I just love fishing, and it was just a natural thing for me. And when the tournament circuit started, I thought, man, what a fit. I'm going to make a living as a fisherman. And somehow it worked out. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Awesome. All right. Last question. Do you think there should be a fishing league with no use of electronics?
I would not say no use of electronics. I would say forward-facing sonar. Now, this is going to get real controversial, and I tried not to enter this arena. I tried not to throw my hat into the ring. I've listened to Randy Blockett. I like Randy. Randy and I are friends. And to be honest, I thought Randy was a little bit too critical. But the more I listen to him and the more I look at what's going on, I'm tending to agree with him. Now, I've never thought that Randy was being, as some people have said, over the top and just bitter. I've never thought that. I've always known he's been heavily opposed, but I didn't really see the amount of change that forward-facing sonar was bringing to fishing. And there are a lot of people out there that are winning tournaments today that really are not very versed in the sport of fishing. They really don't know very much. And if you took that forward-facing sonar away from them, they wouldn't really know what to do. And there are a lot of great fishermen that are now depending on forward-facing sonar that do know what to do, but they don't do nothing else because it's such a proven method for catching big fish. So I honestly think, truthfully, it is hurting our sport. I think it's hurting our sport in a lot of ways. One, it's expensive. And high school fishing is very near and dear to my heart. And there may be one or two kids that their dad has forward-facing sonar. The rest of the kids, the boats don't have them. And the kids that have them are dominating. And so now the other dads and the other boaters feel like we're going to have to add that. And the cost is prohibiting for a lot of them. So the playing field is no longer level. I just think it's hurting. People are not buying lures like they used to buy lures. They're just buying things that are compatible with forward-facing sonar. And I think it's hurting our sport. I've said you could not stop technology. And a friend of mine said, you're right, you can't. But do you realize that there is a rubber compound that they can put in a golf ball and make that golf ball go 30% further? Or put it in a baseball with the same impact from the bat, it'll go 30 to 35% further than a current baseball. That's technology. But the Major League Baseball League said no. It will ruin our sport. It will make our stadiums obsolete. It'll make all the history of home runs absolutely obsolete. The PGA says it'll destroy all the history of golf. So no, we're not going to allow it. And as I think about that, that's almost where fishing is today. Major League Fishing, bass, they're going to have to really look at this thing closely and say, okay, nothing wrong with technology, but it's messing up our sport. And we're going to have to regulate it and disallow it at some point in time. And it's not going to do anything but get more advanced. I work for Humminbird. I love Humminbird. They have worked so hard to develop this, and it's a part of competition. But I don't think anybody, I know I haven't, has really sat down from a technical standpoint and say, you know, this could jeopardize our sport. It could really hurt things. I think that's where we're at. I think it's hurting things. I think we're going to have to stop at some point, step back, and take a look and say we're going to have to disallow it. So as far as electronics, no, I think we need to know how deep it is. Maps, I think from a safety standpoint, maps are so incredibly important. It's really made our sport safer. But forward-facing sonar, when you're looking at fish live and watching your bait and watching them come eat it, it's changed the whole face of the sport. So I think we're going to have to do something about it.
All right.
But that's a topic for another day. I'd like to get some more opinions on that. I'd like to get a couple of different pros and have a little bit of discussion on that. I said early on, Sarah Beth, that I did not want to make this podcast controversial, but I'm not going to run from it. So it's here,
Right.
It's in my face, and we got to do something with it.
Right.
So I'm probably going to bring some experts in, and we'll pick up on that for another day. But in the meantime, let's just go fishing and have fun.
All right. That sounds like a plan to me.
All right. So that's what we're going to do. So I think we'll pick up maybe on that forward-facing sonar down the road. But for right now, we're going to let it sleep.
All right.
It's going to go night-night.
All right. That sounds good.
So tell them goodbye, Sarah Beth. We'll let them go for today, and we'll pick up on our next podcast. How about that?
Goodbye. See you guys next week.
All right. God bless you. Thank you for watching, being a part, or listening. Whichever you're doing, both is good. Hey, subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. Man, we need you. It's no use for us to do these if you're not going to be a part of it. So, man, hit that subscribe button and join us. And thank you for your support. And God bless you. We'll see you next time.
The house needs painting, the grass needs mowing. Where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.